Hi, I'm going to go over several things to help you manage your durations in Project Libre. The first one is how to set it so it'll allow you to work on or through and allow time to be set for the weekends. So when you start a new project and before you actually enter anything, go to click calendar and you'll see that these Saturday and Sunday columns are grayed out, which means those are not available working time. We're in the standard view here, which we can use. And so if you click on this, you'll see that it says use default. The default for a weekend day is that there's no time, no from and to, no working time here available. If you click on like Monday here, you'll see that it shows the default time is that you're working 8 hours, 8 to 12, and it's in 24-hour time, so that shows from 8 to 12 and 1 to 5. So to set it so you're allowed to enter to work on weekends, click the top column, you click the Saturday and shift click the Sunday, so you have the Saturdays and Sunday column selected, and then click non-default working time, which is the same as it's preset to the same as the default time. And then you just say OK. Calendar goes away. When I click on the calendar, lo and behold, the Saturday column, the Sunday columns are not grayed out as being available. And now if I go to my Gantt chart here, and I'll just zoom in a little bit, and if let's see, I'll just go right a tiny bit, so Saturday the 6th, and I'll put in task 1, and I'll put a start date of the 6th, and put 1 day, which is fine, and then I click out of there, and I'll start date the 4th. I'm sorry, I'll make this the 6th. That was the end date. 6th, there we go. And you can see that it's actually recorded the time starting on the 6th, and I can end it on the 7th if I wanted by clicking here. And there you have it. So it's showing a 2-day task starting on a Saturday, ending on a Sunday, showing that the calendar is now allowing you to work on weekends. So I want to speak briefly about how the Project Libre and Microsoft Project, pretty much the same way, handles the amount of time available to work on a day. Remember in the calendar, if we click on the day we're starting here, that it's 8 to 12 and 1 to 5, or 1300 to 1700 hours, which is 8 hours. It's saying that what you're telling the program is that in this case I'm available to work 8 hours a day, and if I think the task is going to take longer than 8 hours, automatically roll over to the next day. Show how that works. So here we have this 1-day task that goes from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Let's say the duration, I'm saying that how long it's going to do this task is 1.25 days. And which means that theoretically, if I'm stopped to work at 5, a quarter of a day means I can still get this done before midnight the same day. But when I enter that, it jumps over into Sunday. And why is that? Well, remember that we're saying we can work 8 hours a day. So it's allocated 8 hours on Saturday. And if we can zoom in a little closer, well, as close as we can get. Anyways, you can see that it's started at 8 and gone to 10. It's added those 2 hours, that other quarter day, into the beginning of the next work day. And that's how we got our 10 hours, or 1.25 days. I could actually put 10 hours here as well if I wanted. I can do it here. I'll say 10 hours and hit OK or close, and it does the same thing. See, started at 8 and goes 8 hours on this day, next day. Now the Gantt chart bar is showing you how long is the sort of the calendar time, the duration, the chronological period of time that from the start of the project of that task until when it's going to end. It's not showing you how many hours in that time that's going to take. It's just showing you that from when you start here and it's going to be over here. In this case, I'm saying through here it's going to take 1.25 days or 10 hours. Remember once again that the day is determined in the calendar here. If I click on the 6th, it's an 8-hour day. But what if I don't want to work 8 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday or any other day for that matter? So in this case, I've got this 1.25 day or 10-hour activity taking place on Saturday and Sunday. Let's say I only want to work 4 hours on Saturday or Sunday. I go to calendar, I click on the day 6th, which is here, and notice it's 8 to 12, 13 to 17. So I'll just take the 13 off, 17 off, and say OK. And now you notice when I click calendar, that's red, meaning that I've actually I've overridden the default. I'm using a non-default working time. I'll do that for Sunday as well, the 7th, April 7th. Hit OK. Okay, and notice that my Gantt chart is no longer going all the way into Monday the 8th. And why is that? Well, because we've said that, remember that this was, if I double click on this, this was a 10-hour work activity. And it's now starting on 8 a.m. on Saturday, taking 4 hours, starting 8 a.m. on Sunday, taking 4 hours, and then finishing up with 2 hours from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Monday the 8th. But why does it say 1.5 days here? Well, when in fact it's actually stretching into 2. Well, to figure that out, we have to go back to the calendar. Click on the calendar. There's an options thing which applies to the calendar, which is these settings for duration. These apply only to durations, not for hour time, but to durations in terms of sort of days, over with how many days it's going to occur. So if I put this to 4, hit OK. Now notice it says 2.5 days, which in fact that's the period of time it's going to take. I'm going to start on Saturday, all of Sunday, and probably get this done through half of Monday. So now that duration is correct at 2.5 days. If I double click this, it still says 10 hours, but now the 2.5 days is correct. But now you see the inverse problem of that is that if I do another task which happens during the week, I'll start task 2 here. And I say that, let's say a 2-day, I'll say it's a 16-hour task starting on, we'll start on the 10th so we can see it there, which is a Wednesday. There it is. So that's showing 8 hours. That's correct. It's showing like 8 hours of one day, 8 hours the next day. We know from the calendar that for those days that I'm available, 8 hours a day. But now it's showing 4-day duration. But that really is confusing. If it's a 4-day duration, you really shouldn't see it starting on the 10th, ending on the 11th. What we really have to do for this program, and it's a bit of a, I don't know if I call it a bug or just a design flaw, is that in your calendar, you have to set your options for your hours per day to really match your default working time. And that way your durations will always match throughout the whole thing. Set it as a default. So let's try that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my calendar, and I'm going to assume that, I really never expect to work more than 4 hours a day on my project. So I'm going to select all these columns for every day of the week. And I'm going to say my default working time is, actually I'm going to say probably be in the evening. Probably not going to work in the morning usually. But it really doesn't matter what time of day it is. The fact is you're allocating a certain number of hours per day. So I'll say 1800 hours, which is 6 o'clock in the evening, to 2200 hours, which is 10 in the evening. Take these two off. Okay, click in here so it takes, and I'm going to say OK. Hopefully this will work. Let's see. Okay, so come back to my calendar, and now when I click on any of these, all the times say 2200 hours. The next step is to go into, except for actually the date these that I overrode before, I have to go in and change these. I'll just leave them because it's still 4 hours per day. The idea is I would do this before you start, and so you override everything. That way you don't have to worry about these outliers that you overrode before. So set this up before you start. You can always go back in and change the working time per day if you want, on an individual basis. So that's okay there. And the next thing is make sure it says 4 hours per day. Now I did that a few minutes ago, and that's fine right there. So my hours per day for a duration, as far as the calendar, now matches the amount of time I'm saying I'm going to spend per day no matter when I do it, whether it's now or next November. In this case, April, May, June, July is fine, and then if you for this case in terms of like a 4-month project, doesn't matter, can go out for a long time. Say OK, and now let's see. So let's see if this is correct now. This is a 10-hour task work. Let's just back up a little bit. And it should take 2.5 days, which it does. Starts on Saturday, goes to 7th, and then to Monday. Look at this one, which is a 16-hour task. It says 4 days. Well, that matches because I'm saying I'm available 4 hours a day. And the Gantt chart, just go zoom out one bit, get back there. Starts on Wednesday, 1, 2, 3, 4 days. So everything's in alignment. The amount of time I say I spend per day matches the duration for a 16-hour task, which is there, and here a 10-hour task. And then you can go out and if I just grab this like this, it adjusts automatically appropriately going out. And notice that when I got here, it stopped there. If I drag it out here, it's 4 hours per day. It wants me to go beyond my work time, which is 1,800 hours, and there it does it. If I drag it before then, here, let me zoom in a little bit so you see what's happening there. Remember I said that my start time is 1,800 hours? If I grab this and drag it to here, which is 8 in the morning, it bounces back because I have to drag it all the way to 1,800 hours here, and there it decides it's good. If I drag it back where it was, and let's say I add 4 hours, which you think if I add 4 hours here, make it a 19-hour task. It automatically starts adding the extra time I need to do that on 1,800 hours the next day. Listen, you could get pretty sophisticated with this. You went into the calendar, and you could decide that you could also indicate days you want to be non-working time. Let's say you're not going to work on these 3 days. You can say that's non-working time. Notice that they get graded. They're not available. You could say that on the 18th you really want to work, and you're going to be, or let's say on the 20th you're going to be available for a whole day. So you could go there and say 8 to. You don't have to stop for lunch. Obviously, you could say 8 to 1,600 hours. And you could sort of customize it that way to indicate, specific times going forward. And then as you just add your tasks and drag them over, it will avoid certain days or add certain days. It's up to you how sophisticated you want to get. I recommend that you start from scratch, decide about how many days you plan to work per day, and just include weekends if you want. And I'll go back and change these back to where they were. So this would be use default. And just keep it consistent. Don't try to get too fancy with that. Just say, some number of days per day, how many hours per day you expect to be available, and then go from there. So good luck with that. I hope that helps clarify how to manage some times and durations in Project Libre. Thank you.